If there is one thing that I've always found really interesting in audio, it's AI and what AI can do for us. And today I'm very excited to talk AI with one of the co-founders of Sonible. So let's get started. All right, welcome to the Yet to Be Named show, in which I talk with engineers and other people that are behind the products that we use in our everyday life. And today I talk with Alex, who is the co-founder and CMO from Sonible. Alex, welcome to the show. If you know a good name for the show, let me know. You're the CMO, and what does CMO stand for?
Like CMO officially stands for like Chief Marketing Officer, but it's kind of, you have to put some, or you don't have to, but we put some labels on our positions. And what I'm mainly doing at Sonible is actually really marketing, but also product management, and that's the part I definitely enjoy more.
And you do have an engineering background, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like all founders of Sonible, I studied electrical engineering and audio engineering, so I have an engineering background. I started at Sonible as an engineer, we all did, and then over the years, we had to kind of specialize, and that's how I slipped into this position. Yeah.
So you founded Sonible together with a few people, and what was the basic idea when you started with Sonible?
I founded Sonible with two of my friends, like who studied together with me, Peter and Ralph. And as I said, we all had an engineering background. We all had an audio background. Like Ralph and Peter did a lot of live jobs, a lot of studio mixing. I was really into all the DSP stuff, programming and coding audio things. And when we finished our study program, it was kind of, we were based in Austria, in Graz. It's not the huge city. It's okay size, but it's not that you have like hundreds of different IT companies here. And so after we finished our studies, we had to decide like if we want to stay on the academic path and follow our research in the field of audio, or if we go to, I don't know, some automotive company and do like, I don't know, sound design for doors or so, which is not bad, but
does that exist? The sound design for doors, like
sure.
Designing
there's a lot of.
Wow.
It's a huge area. They have like anechoic rooms where they have like doors in there, and they slap them hundreds and thousands of times until it sounds good. No joke.
Wow. Okay. Let's continue with the Sonible story.
Anyway, so at this point we thought, okay, we want to stay with music because that's the thing that was really interesting for us. But we didn't really stay in the academic field because it's difficult, and it's also, it's very theoretic. You don't do things that actually come to life, but it's more like for papers and so on. But we saw during our study program how much possibilities are there theoretically in the academic field, and how little of that is actually there if you're sitting in the studio and want to fix stuff. Why don't we just bring these things which are already there, or at least parts of them, to life and develop our own products? That was really the first quite naive idea of let's do that. Yeah, and then we just did it. I mean, Ralph and me, we worked for 1 year at university after we finished the study program because, we didn't exactly know where to start with the company. And then after 1 year, we focused only on Sonible, and the rest is history. I can tell more about that, but this is how it really, like the initial start of what we did.
So there's like really some academic background in the story, and there's also you basically saw some holes in what was happening in the studios and with the products that we use. That's also something that I find fascinating about the Sonible products, because it's really there's an extra layer on top of a compressor, which is the AI, or maybe it's not AI, which is something that I actually want to talk about, because AI, as far as I know, AI is a very broad term and a very difficult term to describe. What is going on in those plugins with AI? Is it really an artificial intelligence, or can you call it more like machine learning, or how do we need to look at these things?
before going into more details here, I think it's important to kind of define what AI actually means. So like really from a theoretical point of view, because there is AI, there is machine learning, there is deep learning, and a lot of people are using that kind of interchangeably. But in fact, AI is kind of the area that's covering all of that. AI simply means that you have some system that's able to perform a task that normally requires human intelligence. This is kind of a very coarse description of what AI is. And how you accomplish this task is on a totally different piece of paper. So AI is the kind of the main area. One subset of AI is machine learning. Machine learning means that it's a system that's learning information from data and typically gets better by learning from data. But it's not defined if this learning is done based on rules or if it's based on other techniques. So this is machine learning. And then deep learning, which is the thing that most people talk about think about when they talk about AI, means that the system is also learning from data, but it's learning without any rules. It's really purely data-driven, where the programmer or the engineer doesn't have to tell the system how to do stuff. It just learns how to do it, like the whole process.
So you're giving the program an input and you are saying to the program what the output should be. I think that's what deep learning describes.
Exactly. I mean, there are a lot of different applications in deep learning and approaches to do that, but the main idea is that you have some input, you want some output, you show the system, if it's supervised, but yeah, you show the system the input, it approaches some output, and then it compares the output it computed to the output it should have reached. And if there is an error, it's called backpropagation. The whole information goes back through the network. The network is adapted, and the next time you send something in and you try to minimize the error of having some input to reach some output. And that's how you train on a very basic basis such a neural network that's doing deep learning.
One of the things which I recently realized is that AI is not as new as we think it is. We think it's like something from the last 10 years or something. But one of the things that I realized is that, for instance, the engine management in a car, there's actually some machine learning in that. I don't know if you knew about that, but apparently a car can learn not necessarily from your driving style, but from all the parameters that are going on. It will basically reprogram itself every time, which is some kind of AI. At least that's how it was explained to me. But it's an older concept than we think, and it's all around us already, which fascinates me. It's everywhere. It's like, I think an average phone is full of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, not everything is full of deep learning necessarily, but definitely full of AI in the terms of machine learning or some other adaptive algorithms that learn from the environment in some way to change the behavior. It's like really everywhere, and I think I underestimate how how full the world is with systems that are able to learn from data and do stuff kind of not independently, but that adapt to things they observe.
So if we go back to the Sonible plugins, the smart bundle, for the people that don't know, the plugin has normal controls, as you can find on your compressors or on your EQ. So you can just work with the plugin in the way that you want. But there's also a self-learning or how can you say it? It's called the assistant, I think. Or what is it called in the...
Oh, like we call the process assistant mixing or assisted mixing.
Yeah.
And the process is the learning process.
Yeah. And you can basically press a button, you select a genre, press a button, and it will make, I call it the first setting for you. So it roughly dials in the plugin for you already. And from there you can fine tune it and do your own thing or disagree with it and just start again. But that layer is really interesting because if you think about it, like also with analog gear, if my console starts at a 0 position, I know that for instance a bass drum, I want to do some mid-low cutting. that whole layer of thinking gets removed by having a machine do it for you. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is what is in the Sonible plugins, what is AI and what is still traditional processing, or is the whole plugin based on AI, or only the assistant?
On the one hand, it depends on the plugin. So not all plugins have the same level of AI or use the same technologies.
Okay.
But in general, you can say that the learning process, like where the plugin is capturing data and learning something from the data, is always AI, because it's always data-driven information that's processed and then set some parameters. Like the core processing, like the normal EQ filter or the normal compressor without spectral compression or the normal limiter, this is not AI. This is like really, this is signal processing. We developed, for example, for the limiter, very modern ways of signal processing. So we didn't just re-implement limiter algorithms that are out there. Same for the compressor. So we also have a different take on these traditional tasks. The core processing itself is not AI based, because I mean some features are, but the main processing not, because it's simply set to some to some setting, and then it's doing its thing, and it doesn't change in an intelligent way if the input is changing. It's different for things like, for example, spectral compression, because this is a kind of course, continuously learning thing.
Yeah.
And it's different for example, the dynamic smart filter curve that's adapting continuously. But main things like, I don't know, compression threshold, even the freeform transfer function of the compressor and so on. This is high quality, I would say, but traditional signal processing.
Yeah, or maybe not traditional in the way that it's a DSP as we know DSP, but what you've just said is like you didn't take original algorithms, like you have tried to improve the algorithms. So it's still, even if you do not like the assistant in the plugins or are scared of using it, which I was for a long time as well, it's still worth it to check out those plugins, because they should be, as far as you're saying, they should be different from the ones that we already know.
Personally, I would say absolutely yes, but I'm a bit biased.
From the marketing perspective, you would say
that? From the marketing perspective, it's the best plugin ever.
Yeah, of course. All the plugins are the best plugins ever.
No, but yeah, really, like one thing that we are sometimes struggling with is actually the fact that some people shy away from using the plugins because of the AI, despite the fact that just the core processing is really, really good. You know, if you would take away the AI part, I think there would be some people who would really celebrate the performance and the quality of them, but they just don't touch them because it's AI.
Yeah, but I can imagine that maybe I'm the cause of that problem a little bit, because for me in my videos, in my snake oil videos, every time something is that is weird or like says AI or whatever, I'm immediately like, this has to be snake oil. This has to be like. I'm super skeptical at a lot of things, and I can imagine a lot of engineers being like that. So I can imagine that, but I think they have to realize that it's like two separate parts. It's a control part that you can also not touch, and a signal processing part that in itself also has been designed in an interesting way. I don't know if you've seen my video in which I reviewed the levels limiter for mastering the mix, but in that video, I was like, they had some claims on their website of being the lowest distortion limiter. And I think this is a good example of improving algorithms. They had some claims on the website, and I was like, I don't know. They didn't say which limiter they compared it with, but they did claim it was like super clean and whatever. So it's like, let's compare this thing with the FabFilter Pro L and the Sonible Smart Limit. And I didn't use the smart part of that limiting because I wanted to match the settings. And the Sonible turned out to be the cleanest. I don't know why. Maybe I was doing something wrong. But compared to the FabFilter limiter, the Sonible limiter is a lot cleaner. So that's really interesting, because it's not just about the AI, is basically what I'm saying.
And that's a perfect example, as you already said, for it has nothing for this specific behavior, for example, that it's not generating any harmonics for an input signal like that. It's not based on any AI. It's just very smart, but in terms of intelligent processing, but in terms of having it implemented in a way that reacts like this or that processes a signal like this, making sure that some signals, I mean, somehow it is AI because the logic that's behind that really behaves differently for different input signals. So if you have a very broadband noisy signal, the limiter will use a different kind of processing than if you have a very soft signal like a sine wave, which is the most extreme example. So there is a kind of intelligence there, but this intelligence was not learned from data. It was kind of invented by us as a new module for limiters.
And I think that you're naming a good difference between AI and traditional programming here. Like if you need to invent it yourself and need to figure it out. Basically, I think that's how programming works as well. Like you build something, you check out if it gives the results that you were expecting. If not, you're returning back to your programming and keeping in that same loop. It's kind of like we humans are the AI a little bit.
Yeah, sure. It's like it's just intelligence without the A.
One of the things that I've also said is like a computer likes to or has its own language that it's talking in. Why not have the computer figure out for himself how to do something? And with AI, it's doing it in its own way, in its own language. And that's kind of a scary part of AI as well, I think, because we cannot understand it. But on the other side, if a computer can figure out something for itself in its own way, it will probably figure it out in a way that we could never think about. How did you train such an AI? Like because I can imagine that the data that you're training it on really is really important for the result and for the way that the AI thinks.
Absolutely. Like data is extremely crucial in all tasks involving AI, particularly like involving deep learning where it's like purely data-based. So what we do is we have to collect huge amounts of data, like really, I don't know, for example, for an equalizer, for a profile like piano or so, you need really like thousands and thousands of samples to train the system on. And this is a quite like collecting all the data and quality checking the data is a very tedious task. It's also thousands and thousands of hours of music, and you have to basically check every sample that's going into the learning process, because if you would send in either a wrong instrument or an instrument that's actually not sounding good, the system would learn that this is an option, and that's really a problem. So all this data acquisition and data quality assurance process is something that takes a lot of time, and it's also, I would say, one of the limitations right now. Like if you would have an unlimited amount of data, of high quality data, there would be, on the one hand, much more possible than it's already possible, and the quality would even make another jump in terms of, it's like, because sometimes systems, even our EQ, sometimes it's just suggesting something where I also think like, okay, no, I just wouldn't do that. If you would have, let's say, 10 times the amount of high quality data, these occasions would significantly be reduced. So yeah, data is essential and also challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also why we are still in control. The AI sets it up for us, but we can then, agree or disagree with it. The funny thing with a smart EQ is that you can literally completely disagree with it and go the opposite way by dragging down the smart band. That's I find it. I mean, sometimes I really say like, okay, this is good, but I want it the opposite way. I get it the opposite way, and then I'm somewhere where I want to be. So that's interesting. The data that you are collecting is basically examples of, for instance, a piano should sound. That's what you're training the AI with.
Like we are, for the EQ, for example, we have it's supervised learning. Supervised means that we have always sample pairs, like a bad sounding sample and a good sounding sample. And then the system learns how to go from bad to good. And what we do here is that we start with the good sounding sample. So we collect a lot of good sounding samples, and then we artificially destroy them using various types of filtering, room impulse responses, whatever, like things that could happen or could have happened to the signal after recording. And with this bad example, we show it the bad example, and then the system learns how to get back to the good example. Yeah, that's how we do it.
Okay. So you also need to create kind of a database of input signals as well. So you have good sounding signal and also what the bad side of that signal would be. So that's really a people job. Like that's really people that need to figure out that data, right? Or is there also some tricks or shortcuts in there?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's definitely a people's job is the quality assurance.
Yeah.
Like this checking, okay, this sample goes into the database. This is something that a human listener with experienced ears has to do. The destroying of samples is something that's automated. So we have some processes how to destroy samples, and this is something that's done by the system itself during training. It just gets a new sample, destroys it in a random way, and then learns from it.
Oh, okay. So the system is challenging itself, basically.
Kind of, yeah. And it also takes, for example, you could take the same sample and destroy it in 100 different ways, which is good because then the system learns you can get to this result from these 100 different ways of destroying a signal.
Yeah.
So it helps to increase the data that you're able to learn from.
And is there any value in having like a before and after samples from engineers so that engineers can send like, this is the piano, how we recorded it, and this is how it was processed in the mix? Is there some value in that?
Absolutely. Or let's say you would have one huge producer that's really famous and has a huge set of projects out there. And this producer would give us all his non-processed and processed files. Then we could, for example, learn how this producer typically EQs a certain instrument or so. And this is something we've been thinking about a lot. But since you need not 10, 20 or 50 samples, but thousands of them, this is also really, it's a very, very time-consuming task also for the producer that would have to share the data.
And if you do that with, because what I'm thinking about is if you do that with a lot of producers or engineers or whatever, everybody in the world will send their before and after, then you basically get the perfect average, right? Or
theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
And we have been thinking about, like, our plugins are able to send some, if you enable it, some analytics data to our servers, kind of how often it's used and so on.
Yeah.
So no crucial information. And one option would have been to say, okay, we collect the observation, like the information from the original sample, and then we could also collect the processed information and learn from that, like how the user, because the plugin is learning.
And also how the user is correcting it.
Exactly,
yeah.
that would be the thing. Plugin is learning, and then the user makes some tweaks, and this end result could be, again, sent back for learning.
Yeah.
The problem is you have no idea who is sitting in front of the plugin.
Yeah, that's an issue. What is their view? What's their monitoring? What is their... Yeah.
Exactly. And so what we thought about is that we could have either a selected number of people that get special versions of the plugin that are able to kind of contribute. It's like, for example, you make a mix and you think, wow, I really nailed this vocal. I want to send it to Sonible so that their vocal profile gets better. This would definitely be an option. It comes with some issues regarding. It depends how you exchange the data.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I never show the audio that I'm working on in my mixing sessions is because it's very delicate stuff. Not only from an IP perspective, but I know that my clients they don't like it when I show them. Basically the naked versions of their songs. There's a reason why we're mixing on those songs and bring them to Spotify and stuff as a master, because that is completely polished and the way that we want people to hear the song. So it's really a difficult thing to get audio material. And what I really like is the loudness penalty approach, basically, which is, I don't know if you know that website, but that website processes locally. So you're not uploading your files to there, but it's just processing locally and just using the data, the rough metadata, I think it's what it's called, to calculate your loudness.
Yeah. And that's, for example, that's something we could do with the plugin. The plugin could do all the processing locally and then just send the information we need for the learning process, which is, for example, in terms of the EQ, it's not the raw audio data. Yes, it could be done that way.
So basically the biggest challenge of producing AI plugins at this moment is getting good data. That's one of the biggest challenges.
It's one of the biggest challenges.
One of
it's
the,
still
yeah.
like the another challenge is really like just building the systems, which is also not trivial. But yes, data is one of the very challenging parts of AI in all areas, not only in music.
Better said, a very important part, because
Yeah.
and I'm starting to realize this now. When you have bad data, like if it's indeed plugins that send back data from users that make choices that we wouldn't make, then it would create noise in the algorithm. I think that's a good way of saying it. So when it comes to that neural network that you're training, do you know what is going on in there, or is it really a black box? Like you have to hand it off and just pray that it works, or how do you approach that as an engineer? Like,
no, it kind of really is, and this is the very, very strange and scary, sometimes frustrating part of working with actual deep learning, because, for example, our first plugins that we developed, and even the first version of SmartEQ, like SmartEQ Plus, which was like years ago, it was not based on deep learning. It was based on a model-based approach. So we extracted some features. We exactly knew what the features are. We had some rules how to compare these features to statistics. So it was data-based, but we had kind of defined the system that's finding out the right solution. We defined it ourselves. And it was quite easy to tweak, because we knew if something was wrong, we could look into the code and see, okay, probably we have to tweak this parameter. With SmartEQ 3 now, where we use deep learning, it's really like we throw in this bunch of data and the system just tells us the filter looks like this. And if I don't agree, I have no idea, except for looking at the original training data, why this could be. And this is very, very strange for an engineer, because we are used to kind of going step by step and really like understand what's happening. And while there are some approaches that try to look into a deep neural network, if you have a network, you normally have multiple layers, like an input, and then there's layer, and some output. And for image processing, you can kind of look into the network and you see that the first layer is more or less detecting just edges. The second layer is detecting connected lines. The third layer is connecting objects. And the fourth one is then identifying the objects. So you kind of understand that. For audio material, up to now, there also have been approaches to look into, for example, a convolutional neural network like this, but it never really worked, except for the fact that, I'm jumping around a bit now, but if you have a neural network with audio, the input could be the pure audio waveform, or it could be the spectrogram, or some feature. And if you're using, for example, the pure audio waveform, and you're using a typical convolutional neural network, people found out that the first layer or the first two layers are more or less performing a Fourier transform. So what the first layers do is they split the audio signal into their fundamental frequencies, which is really exciting, because it's kind of the system understood that this is the way how to look at data.
But that's really cool. It figures that out itself.
Yeah, exactly. It just understands, like it changes the weights until it knows, okay, it's a good idea to obviously split frequencies somehow.
Yeah. Oh,
and this is really like, it's exciting to see that.
Yeah.
And it's possible to understand this part, but what's coming afterwards when it comes to, I don't know, source separation or EQ filter curve computation or whatever, it's really a black box. And we just have to, by running a lot of experiments and by checking the results over and over and over again and checking the data over and over again, you kind of approach, typically it's the way that in the beginning it doesn't work at all. Then there is a huge jump where it starts to work, and then you have to tweak again for quite a long time. So this is how we experienced it.
And you basically need to get a feeling for it, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
While with programming, you can learn certain things, and you can, Google is your biggest friend. While with this, it's like really you have to get experienced and get a feeling for it, and maybe up to a certain point you're at a point where the learning is doing something and you're like, oh, I know why it's doing this. Like
for example, we have one developer who is very, very specialized in AI, and it's so funny because he often says like, it's not working, and I guess it's like this or that, and I say like, how do you how do you know? And he's like, I don't know, I just, as you said, I have the feeling it's that way, and most of the time he's right. So it really, you kind of develop a gut feeling for why the system isn't behaving the way it should be. Yeah, and it's funny. It's a very, very huge paradigm shift in the whole engineering world. Not only in audio, but in the whole engineering world.
Everywhere, yeah. It's a completely new job title and a completely new mindset, I think, to work like that. Yeah. I can now also imagine that traditional programmers do have some issues with adapting to AI because, you're losing all control.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and it's also a problem at some universities, for example. If, let's say, you're a researcher and you were really good in your area for 20 years, and you always had these rule-based things where you had to define features and stuff and really understand the core matter, and suddenly someone is coming into your field with almost no experience, just with a lot of data, and has better results than you have. It's very, very frustrating, and for some people, they really because some don't want to adapt. They say, no, this is all bullshit because you don't understand what's happening and so on. But in the end, the results prove that the approach seems to work. But it's a very, it's really a shift of mindset that's necessary here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also a shift maybe globally, just for the whole world, that we have to basically accept the power and capabilities of AI. I mean, I can imagine as an audio engineer as well. I ask myself the question: do I need to be afraid? How long will it take until an AI can mix a track better than I can? That I think that's a legit question to ask. I don't know if it's within my lifetime, but
no, it definitely is. And I mean, we've been thinking about that a lot at Sonible too, because what we do is we say it's assisted mixing. It supports you in your mixing process, and we always assume that you are in control. That's why we show all the parameters. We always assume that all the creative decisions are done or made by the mixing engineer. Depending on the skill set, it may be more or less stuff that's modified, but we always see the human as the central part of the creative process. But yes, when we think about more holistic systems, for example, things like Isotope Neutron or so is doing, where you don't have just the small building blocks, but you have more or less a complete assistant in every track you have. It's on the one hand very fascinating, and we have been trying stuff in that field too, and it's surprising how far you can get already with that kind of approach. But still, we're also a bit struggling with how can we develop products that are actually really helping the creative process or the mixing process and not taking away all the fun of it. Because in the end, at least I would say 90% of our customers don't earn their living with mixing. They do it as a hobby because it's like playing an instrument. And you don't want to, for example, let's say you play the guitar and suddenly there's an automatic guitar robot that's playing the guitar for you. Where's all the fun? It doesn't make sense. And it's somehow similar with mixing or music production in general. There has to be the fun part of mixing has to stay there, and the annoying part, okay, we could take that away. It's like, and that's what we trying to figure out. How can you just create new tools that support you in your craft, but don't completely take away your craft and take away the human aspect of it.
Yeah, and I mean, if I could reverse this thought, there's also some value in let's say that you're really you're making music for the fun of it, and you like to finish your track, and you're on a low budget, then plugins with AI. I actually really like then the Focusrite Fast bundle, but that stuff has Sonible stuff in there, so it's kind of Sonible, but it can really help them to get further with their hobby and with their fun without walking into a brick wall when they call up a studio and they get the offers from them. And that's also, of course, what has happened 10 years, 15 years ago, making recording equipment accessible to everybody. I think that has always been a good development because more people are making music now, and making music is fun. So, more happy people in the world.
So, I think you're right. Yeah. I think if you look at let's say the creator side of things, like the musicians or music producers that just have some idea, they create it, and then they want to have a decent quality of what they did. For them, it's really only supportive, the whole AI thing. Yeah, it allows them to actually finish a track and not just leave it unfinished and save it somewhere and never listen to it again. I think the more professional the actual users become, the more challenging the idea of, okay, because, for example, you could do most of the stuff, at least, that the AI is doing yourself. Probably you're not as quick in some tasks.
Yeah,
or so,
that's an issue. Yeah, the AI is quicker.
But you could do it. So it's not, it's not that 10 years ago people couldn't produce a decent quality mix because there was no AI. It's not true. It was possible, and it's still possible. So the higher your personal level of experience is, the less you may need these tools, and the more they seem like a threat to you, probably. Or at least that's our experience when we talk to people. Even for people who are very experienced, they can be very, very helpful in the production process. And yeah, it's a thin line. So
for me, now that I understand it, and that's one of the things that is, I fully understand that people are not feeling very comfortable with a computer dialing in their settings, because I wasn't comfortable with that for 5 or 6 years, or how long does the first Smart EQ exist now? Like I wasn't comfortable with that, so I always was like, no, let's not go into that. But now that I understand the deeper value behind it, it can do certain things quicker than I can. And, when inserting an EQ, pressing the learn button and just see what it does for me. It takes like 5 seconds. If it does something that I do not like, then it's just 5 seconds. But if it does something that I like, then I'm already quicker at that starting position from where I can go to analog, or can do like the creative sauce, whatever I want to do. But if we look at it from the perspective of being afraid for AI because it could take your job, what I like to do from there is challenge myself. Like, okay, now in the future a computer can fully mix a track. Let me show that computer that I can do it better as a human, because I have a certain feeling or experience or taste or whatever, which is something that I don't see a computer modeling in my lifetime, at least. But maybe this is going to be a meme in 10 years, but who knows?
At least if you want to look like 5 to 10 years into the future, you can simply look at the photography market. Like, because image processing, they started much earlier than audio processing with automatic image correction and all this intelligence that's inside a smartphone. I mean, nowadays, if you take an iPhone in the dark and you make a picture, it's unimaginable how good the quality is, and it wouldn't have been possible 15 years ago, not with the best gear around. Still, the market is booming. A lot of people are taking photographs, and you still see if a photograph is taken by a professional or not, just because there is so much more to it than just the technical perfection. And I think while it could be possible in the next, let's say, 10 years, that an AI system could actually create a technically perfect mix, the thing that really sets a great mix apart from that is the human factor. It's the same with music altogether. There are 200,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every week, and a couple of them, for whatever reason, cut through and become successful. Sure, there's marketing and everything, but there is also some other factor that's not, you cannot compute that. It's this secret sauce that's in there.
Yeah, nobody knows if something is going to be a hit or not. Like, you can do your best, but you never know if people are going to like it. And that's one of the big mysteries of the universe, if you ask me. Like, how do tracks end up in Spotify, in the top lists? I don't know. For the future, what could happen is, of course, that audio engineers, mixing engineers, artists, whatever, that their controls are going to change. That right now we have an EQ with frequency settings and that kind of stuff, but maybe that is going to change to different type of controls that I cannot imagine right now. But that we have a different way of interacting with the audio, because the AI is doing a lot of stuff for us in the background. That's something that could happen, of course.
Definitely. I think probably it will also depend on the user experience, but I think more semantic controls will become more and more usual. So because for a musician may know what muddy means and how a muddy sounds like, because it's kind of muddy, but this musician will not know how to use a filter to pull out or get rid of this muddiness. But if there would be a tool that says, kind of, just an example, muddy, more or less, it would give people definitely more control over the outcome of a mix, even if they don't know about the technicalities of the process behind it. Again, same as with image processing. Let's just take Instagram filters. It's a very typical example. Like you don't know exactly what these filters are doing, but you can swipe through it and then you stop at some filter because you just know, okay, this looks right. And it could be somehow similar with music. Kind of, okay, yeah, this is good. And then you can go from there if you want to.
So what would be your top tip for engineers that want to go or want to learn more about AI in their plugins but are still a bit afraid of it? What would be the top tip to break that fear?
Let's say you're sitting in the studio and you have someone sitting next to you, an assistant, and you listen to a track and this assistant tells you, shouldn't we reduce the highs a bit because it's a bit harsh? And then you may listen to it again. And then either you say, oh, you're right, thank you for pointing that out. Or you say, no, that's exactly how I wanted it, But still the input was helpful because sometimes you overlook things or you're just too long in the mixing process and don't hear it anymore. And having kind of a second suggestion, even if you don't take it, is always interesting, I would say.
Yeah, because then you can also think about it. Like, indeed, like, okay, the highs, okay, no, that's how I intended it. And then you're also making that conclusion for yourself. Like, yes, that's how I intended it. Yes, I've now, and with Sonible or with smart plugins in general, they already give you the example. So you don't even have to think about the highs. It's just, it's you can hear it as well, which is more interesting than talking with an assistant sitting next to you, because then you're still talking about audio. All right, and so the last thing is, what is your future dream that you want to achieve with the plugins or in audio that just is can sound very far away? Like one of the things that I have, and I've discussed this already with you a few months ago, buffer data from a DAW. When everything is mixed in the box, I would like plugins to be able to overview the whole song, because they could. Do you have anything in that regard?
I mean, this is not like looking too far into the future, but exactly the problem we have right now, that we as developers don't have access to all the data in the DAW, is really a big constraint for anything you want to do data-based. Now there is ARA and ARA2, where you can at least access, with DAWs that support it, you can access all the actual audio files that are there, but you cannot, for example, access results that are sent to a bus or to the stereo bus, because it's not actual audio files. But still, it's a good first step. But I would really love to see the DAWs developer standard together with developers to provide access to the overall audio data that's available, because for so many tasks, it would be great to have this overview. But I really hope that this is something that's coming in the next couple of years. It's not like totally far out. And when it comes to visions, I don't know. I mean, one thing I really hope that AI will solve is everything that's related to really problematic recordings. If there's a recording where the level is not right, if it's too noisy, if there's some background noise, if there is a crosstalk you don't want, like all these things which are simply and purely technical problems, it would be fantastic if you would say, okay, this is the sample, clean it, and that's it. On the one hand, there is no way to do it manually in many cases, and there is no creativity involved. It's just, get it right.
Yeah, if you need to do it manually, like it would be so depressing. I wouldn't even call it boring.
Exactly. This is one of the tasks you definitely don't like. Oh yeah, let's now sit down and for 3 hours gate
have some
beautiful
fun.
Track here. I hope that systems are getting better there, and that this will be solved at some point. And in the end, I assume that we will see much more systems which are kind of fully integrated, from recording to delivery, like where the delivery system knows about the recording conditions or something like that, so that the whole process is curated in a way, that there is someone overlooking the whole process. And I think while this will be helpful for professionals, this will be mainly a nice way for hobbyists or people who are just, who just want a good sounding result in the end. I think this would really help, like this guidance and assistance level.
And you mean in a different or deeper way than, for instance, RX from Isotope is doing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like really in a way I think that could really change the whole workflow. And if I say change the workflow, I would even say that the classical DAW wouldn't be part of this workflow anymore. So,
Okay.
so
Wow.
something. No, it's like really.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ideas out there,
Yeah.
and I'm quite sure we'll see something like that coming the next couple of years. I'm not sure when it will be really establish a new way of production, but
Yeah. I mean, adoption is always very slow in audio. That's what I've
exactly,
learned. Like, yeah.
it's ridiculously, is it like the
Yeah.
word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not sure.
Ridiculously. Yeah.
It's like really extremely slow.
Yeah.
Um, somehow it's nice because it's not so overhyped like some other areas. But sometimes we would, as developers, for example, when it comes to all these DAW restrictions, we would really hope for a bit more spirit of innovation in the field, because it would help to think about things that are beyond the things that are out there yet.
Yeah, and I think one of the causes, but that's of course, in Holland we say talking from our own church. One of the causes that adoption in the industry is so slow is because I think we've become a bit numbed by all those plugins or products that promise to be the next big thing, the next big wah, while in practice it's just a recycled algorithm, repackaged, and that's. I can make more snake oil videos than I have time to make. So that's probably one of the reasons why we are, very numbed down, because a lot of people know that, first see it and prove it, and then we will think about maybe adopting this way of working. That's how the business has become. That's not something that I can change or that you can change or something. That's just a general vibe that I see in the audio community, and it's good to not go too quickly, but I do agree at least that we can innovate a bit quicker, I think, and we can adopt certain things a bit quicker, to my opinion. But yeah, anyway, for me that was all that I wanted to ask you. Are there any things that you want to add?
One thing where it becomes, even because mixing is always a combination of a kind of creative process and a more, I don't know, just fixing stuff process. There is a part in mixing where creativity is not so relevant. And I think, for example, if AI takes away this part where the creative part is not so relevant, that's okay. Another field where AI is booming, or where a lot of new developments are coming out, is the whole generative AI part. When the AI is actually creating music or creating tunes and so on. And while I think that this is also a great field for, let's say, people who don't play an instrument and they still want to produce music, so they can use these systems. When it comes to, for me personally, the core of music is really the creativity, like the spirit that's behind it. And if you even create stuff AI-based, in the end, if it's just a system that says create an EDM track, you press create, and then you have the track, I think then we definitely went on the wrong path when it comes to using AI.
Yeah, but I wouldn't hear the difference between a human-produced EDM track and an AI EDM track, because they are all the same.
But that's even an issue probably, because I think, and that's also a fun story. In the 70s, I think there was a system that created piano tunes and could simulate Chopin and whatever, like famous composers.
Yeah.
It was a very simple rule-based system. And I read a book about AI, and a guy who was really leading the field at the time, he thought, okay, like music is the most inner emotional expression of human beings. It will never be possible that an AI system, just based on rules, can reproduce that. And then he used this very simple system, and it just worked more or less. And he was really shocked. It was kind of, he asked everything, like okay, are we humans actually not that unique and so on? So I think it would be possible to create stuff where you couldn't tell if it's coming from an AI system or not. But I'm not sure, and I think using it again as a kind of a system or to give you ideas and whatever is great. But when you give away everything, it becomes kind of difficult.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But it could also, for some people, could be really fun to play with.
No, sure.
Yeah.
And probably, I mean, as in other fields, just because it's there, it doesn't mean that all people are using it.
Yeah, true.
But whatever. This is just something I'm currently more concerned about, I would say, than the making better mixes using AI.
Yeah.
Than just creating a whole piece of art in terms of the original idea using AI.
Yeah, outcomes could be interesting, but if the music industry becomes I think it's a balance. Like also there are things that AI maybe could add in terms of inspiration or whatever, but
Absolutely.
but if the whole industry starts to, record labels will invest in AI so that they don't have to deal with artists anymore, and then all music becomes AI generated. Like, we're going on the wrong way, and I think that will never happen, because then music will get very generic and very boring, and people will just stop listening. So I think the world will keep itself in balance there.
Yeah, I hope so too. And normally it's that way, I would say. But
We'll see. We'll see what the future will bring. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this talk. And I'm going to mix now using Sonible plugins again. And that is not just for all the viewers, and that's not because Sonible is sponsoring me or whatever. And I think Alex can agree with that. Everything in this video was my honest and independent opinion, and also Alex's honest and independent, or maybe Sonible's honest and independent opinion.
No, it's like, in this case, it's really like my personal opinion, I would say.
Okay. No, well, nice. Just so you all know. All right, and that's it. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. If you like my videos and want to support me, consider becoming a member. You can do that on Patreon or on YouTube down below. Whatever suits you, the content is the same on both. As a member, you get early access to videos and access to some exclusive content as well, which I'll link over here. If you don't want to become a member but still want to support the channel by watching more videos, I'll link an interesting video over here. Thanks a lot for watching, keep pushing, and bye-bye.